if religion isn't true, then why do people continue to believe in it? That's what I want to talk to you today about. Well, one of the things that kind of jumps right out at me is with respect to religion and Christianity and why someone would believe even if it wasn't true, is because Christianity specifically answers many age-old questions like, what's the meaning of life? Does my life matter? Christianity and religion in general gives people purpose, and it gives them meaning in their life, and it tells them that they matter and that things are not meaningless and that this isn't just nothingness. I think the human condition, our human mind, for some reason we have a hard time. Not everyone is this way, but a lot of people seem to, especially believers, current believers of the faith, have a problem with the idea of this world being temporary and this being all there is, and there being no afterlife. It's something to do with the idea of that once you're separated, once you go to the grave, that's it. There's nothing out. It somehow that sits not so well with people, and they feel as though, well, that just can't be the case, that there's got to be more on the other side. And of course, no one's gone. I mean, we have all these alleged accounts of, situations where people have gone and come back from the other side. I think when we do a thorough assessment of those stories, I don't want to say these people are liars. Certainly they believe they've had some sort of experience, but when you analyze these stories for inconsistencies and this and that, and is there any other possible psychological explanation that could explain these near-death experiences? I get it. Some of these are quite compelling stories. However, we're all kind of familiar with the idea that, I was in the emergency room and I saw my body floating, and I mean, I've heard the claims about people saying that they can hear things that were said in the room, and well, that's because you're laying on the table and you're still conscious and you still have auditorial. You can hear, even though you may be unconscious. You can still hear, as far as I know. Or they say, well, the doctor was wearing blue sneakers or something that I don't know. I don't have a good explanation, but a lack of me being able to have, or a lack of us being able to have a good explanation for these near-death experiences isn't proof that they really truly happened and that there's truly something on the other side, that there really is an afterlife. But back to the idea of why do people continue to believe? Well, there's many reasons. Of course, family tradition is another one. And simply because the fact that religion can be very, I think the word is cathartic. It can be very helpful, very cleansing. People, regret their behavior all week long, and then they go in on Sunday and they have a cleansing. They cast all their concerns and they get all their sins before the altar of God, and they get cleansed and they renew their mind, and they feel like they're at peace, and God has forgiven me. I've said my prayers. God will forgive me. I'm not such a bad person. There are many, many reasons why people would believe in Christianity, and it not being that it's true, it not being that that's the only explanation why people would believe. People believe in all kinds of things. We have flat earthers out there. There are people that believe in the craziest of crazy things. And yes, I think that if you're a flat earther, I think that's pretty out there. I'm not saying that you're not a smart person, that you're not, and I'm not going to disparage anybody, but the evidence is conclusive that we don't live on a flat earth. I don't know what data you're looking at, but and because it's this whole idea about the moon hoax. It's all about conspiracy theories, right? All this stuff is so intertwined. It's so intertwined, like religions, and it's like people that believe in conspiracy theories are primed to believe in that stuff. All right, I know I'm straying from the topic, but retracing my steps, why do people continue to believe, even though there seems to be no good reason to? We don't have an abundance of evidence, empirical data that we can say, yep, God is real, God really exists. And I think it just comes back to because people believe in God, people have faith in religion because it feels good. That's probably the end of it right there. They know in their heart of hearts that, well, it might not be true, but I take it on faith, and I believe. And faith is not fact. Faith is believing in the things not seen but heard. So if it makes somebody feel good to believe, and I think that's really the bulk of it. Now, I know there are people out there. There are theologians. There are biblical scholars. That are in the opinion that, yes, the best explanation for the Bible and all the story is, in fact, that God truly does exist and that he did send his only one begotten Son, and if you believe in him, you'll have eternal life. The whole John 3:16, whatever it is. So, all of that aside doesn't prove that God exists, and it doesn't prove that religion is real and it's something you should put your faith in. But if someone is so inclined, I'm not here to disparage anybody. I'm not here to brainwash and convince and, oh, you atheists, I'm not claiming to be an atheist. I'm just saying I'm more agnostic. I don't know. And even that, I think, is kind of a, pardon the expression, a pussy way out. Because really, I mean, make a decision. Either God exists or God doesn't. But it seems like the smart move, kind of like Pasquale's wager. We better to live a good life and get to heaven and be wrong, that there is no heaven, than to be live a good life and don't live a good life, or don't live a life in service to God and be wrong, and then find out and then you're going to burn. It's a wager. So stating in agnosticism, is it playing it safe? I don't know. I mean, it's just stating. I think even the atheists are saying, we don't know. We don't know if God really exists or not, and we can't be certain about that. So we're certain that we're uncertain, I guess you could say. I don't want to speak for atheists out there. I don't want to speak for other agnostic folks, but that seems to be the best bet, the best place to go. The rest of the folks out there that are believing in Christianity and that believe in religion, they have their reasons why they believe, why they continue to believe in the face of some significant criticisms that I feel are warranted, and really call into question whether we should believe in some sky man that may or may not exist. And that what's interesting is that I mentioned this in another video too, and I'm going to digress just for another second. Bear with me. Why would it be that if you had the supreme being that could create the universe and could create all the life in it, create the planets, the solar systems, the galaxies, creates the entire universe, why would they be so petty as to insist that you worship them? To me, the explanation for that is that's a man-made attribute. And I made a video a while back on this too. That's a man-made attribute that we imposed on this celestial being in the Bible, in the Old Testament, that says, this guy or this being needs to be worshipped. I say guy, not to offend any sexist feminists out there. It's simply because that's how the Bible refers to God, as a he. It doesn't refer to him as a she, although it does say, let us make man in our image, which was inclusive man and woman, so that would imply sort of that God is both male and female, or that God is whatever, doesn't have a gender. But it says he, your God. It does have more, but that's because it was written by man. It was written by men, and men ascribed and put certain attributes to God. So I think that's the best explanation for why the God of the Bible is so insistent that he be worshipped, and because that's what many gods and demigods, that's what they, that's what the stories go. That's what that's what you want your followers to do, is to worship you and worship idols and graven images and all that. That's just been what we've done. For thousands of years. That's what's been going on. But all of that aside doesn't prove that God exists, and it doesn't prove that he doesn't exist. But why would people still continue to believe? And I think it goes back to what I was saying before, because having faith for many Christians it provides them solace. It provides them comfort in uncertain times. It provides them with a roadmap for life. It provides them with redemption and forgiveness for their wrongdoings. And maybe they just lived an awful life and they need redemption. I don't know. Maybe we all need redemption. I mean, I don't think so, but many believers do. So people continue to believe for a number of reasons. But one of those reasons isn't, in my opinion, that it's because it's true. Could I be wrong? Sure. If I'm wrong, though, one now has to do something with the abundance of contradictions, issues, just problems that exist in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. If you could make all those go away, and I don't mean explain them away, if you could make all that go away, if they didn't exist in the first place, I would be more inclined to believe in this Christianity thing, and believe that it was true, and that it was of some kind of supernatural, divine, celestial being's origin. But I don't believe it does come from that. I believe that all of Christianity, all of Judaism, religions all across the world originate with us. They started with man. We wrote them to be our best attempt, our best guess at trying to explain the universe around us and trying to give meaning to our life and trying to give purpose to our life and show that we mattered and that this life wasn't so temporary and meaningless, because that's a really hard pill for us to swallow. Now, you see, I've come full circle now back to where I originally started, but that's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, is the temporariness of life, the frailty of life. The temporariness is just too much for many people. And I think some of those people, not everyone out there, because not everyone obviously is a believer, they turn to religion, they turn to faith in Christianity because it answers the unanswerable questions with, it fills a void. It places in the mysteries of life and provides them with context in which I mean, that's fine if that's what they want to do, but I don't think that's really being honest when you don't really know that that's the way, the world works. And I guess that begs the question, do you really have to know how the world really works? Do you really have to know if there's a God that exists for you to truly believe? One kind of makes sense that it would be logical and rational that before you put your faith and your trust in these things, that you would actually know that these things exist. But people with the fear tactics that they were taught when they go to church, they're indoctrinated with this fear tactics that, if they don't believe, well, gee, we've got a special place for you where you can, burn and cry and scream because as your flesh burns. But that's a real loving God, right? That's the alternative to not worshiping this celestial dictatorship. It's like mind-boggling why people can't see it for what it really is. Grateful that I've had the opportunity to be able to see things how, or at least what I believe to be the way they are. If someone wants to continue to believe in faith and in religion and in Christianity, go by all means, go ahead. But I think there is a plethora of reasons out there for you not to believe, and it's your choice. It makes no difference to me. But I'm just sharing with you all that from my vantage point, from my perspective, now having looked and seen at the criticisms and looked at seeing all the naysayers, all the skeptics, agnostic folks and the atheist folks in that community, those arguments are far more compelling than anything any theologian could ever say. Any Billy Graham, any whoever. It doesn't matter who. God rest his soul, he's late back. But just using an example, this whether it be Joel Osteen, any modern day preacher out there. Though I know he takes a lot of flack for not being on fire for the Lord enough. But anyways, I don't want to digress into that's another video too. No matter what anyone says, the skeptic arguments to me, maybe not for you, far exceed, they provide the best explanation, for me anyways, for why we see the world not working out like the way the Bible says. I'll close with this. When Jesus said, if you say to the mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done if you ask it in my name, what did he mean? Oh, well, he didn't really mean that. If we're supposed to take the Bible at a literal reading of the surface and not read in between it and shove things in there that aren't really there on the surface, well, you got to think a little deeper. No, God would know that the layperson reading the Bible wouldn't do that. They would just read the surface and, oh, well, that's why they got to go to church and have their pastor, their preacher, their reverend, whatever, explain to them this. No, the Bible is set up so that any layperson can read it. But yet that's the explanation Christians come up with when you call them on things like this example of Jesus saying that you ask anything in my name, but again, it's only according to God's will. So what's God's will? If God's will is God's will, and no matter what you pray and ask for, if his will is or the counter, if you can pray and ask for things that are not in God's will, what's so great about having a divine plan? If it can be messed up every time you ask for something, so it doesn't make any sense. There are rational inconsistencies within religions, and you can see them throughout the world if you study them. This is just one particular issue that I'm taking with Christianity. All right, I promised I would conclude. I know it's a long video. Thank you for enduring me. But these are the types of things that cause me to have a lack of faith in this day and age. This is where I'm at with it. And maybe you're at a similar place as well, or maybe you're still entrenched in Christianity and could never possibly think to give up your faith because you would worry about being eternally separated from God because he loved you so much. You can believe all of that if you want. That's fine. Makes no difference to me. But as someone that's come out of that place and been able to see now, with the wool being pulled off my eyes and being able to see things a lot clearer, I can no longer stomach those kind of, I don't want to say lies, but they're myths, truths. They are. It's not the truth. If it was the truth, then the world would look differently. I'm not saying it would be a fair world, but things in the Bible would actually be able, Jesus, like he says, if you say to the mountain, cast yourself into the sea, that would actually happen. That's happened to no one ever, and it never will happen, just like all the other things, and it's most likely because religions are not true. They are man-made. Thanks for watching the video.